Arthur Peach felt for his rapier. This weapon, his only material possession in the world, was a reassuring accessory on this journey in the peak of summer 1638. Everything else around him had deteriorated, but the metal blade remained sharp, cool, and clean. For several days, he and his companions, fellow indentured servants, had been traversing an unfamiliar forest with insufficient supplies. Now, the hellish forces of exposure and hunger wore on him and the three other men, and he had reason to fear that these men questioned his leadership. The formidable stands of oak, maple, and pine trees obstructing his view of the sky were broken up by the wetlands of Misquamsqueese, north of present-day Seekonk, Massachusetts. They stopped in an eerie spot filled with curious markings, including a foreboding imprint forged into stone known as the Devil's Footprint. Elongated and worn deep into the dark rock, it was simply an ancient indigenous corn mortar, though Peach had no way of knowing this. Peach and his companions may have overheard the similarly sinister name for the watery region, the Devil's Swamp. To this day, the desolate wetlands provoke the local belief that the place itself could foster pain and evil. The men's choice to camp on the border between the Wampanoag and Narragansett territories provided an opportunity to avoid both tribes. If Peach and his companions had ventured farther east or west, they would have been confronted by indigenous men. Their location fell with precision on a natural border. 6 years later, the spot would become the center of a large-scale land boundary dispute between the colonies. Relentless mosquitoes and slow-moving dragonflies hinted at the proximity of swampy waterways. Peach must have wished he were back in the lush expanses of his native Ireland, however contested and blood-stained. As he rested his head on a bed of dried-out pitch pine needles, he could reflect on the surreal events that had brought him to this abysmal place. Earlier in the summer, on June 1st, 1638, nature itself had seemed to promise remarkable things to come. First, Peach noticed the ground in Plymouth Colony shaking under his feet with such ferocity that with a report like continued thunder, chimneys were thrown down and the pewter fell from the shelves. In describing the trembling earth, some said that the Holy Ghost did shake it in coming down on them. The Providence patriarch Roger Williams described the accompanying din as a kind of thunder. That was just the earthquake itself. The aftershocks rumbled on and off throughout June, and then on the 25th of that month, in a crescendo of God's mysterious works, the light drained from the moon, turning its eclipsed form from opalescent to the russet color of battle-dried blood that Peach knew well. The fantastic omens tantalized young adventurers looking for new opportunity. The servitude contract Peach had entered into with the Plymouth power broker Edward Winslow 2 years before would end when he turned 25, permitting him to live as he pleased from that point on. By 1638, Peach had 2 years to go. Nothing in the grand scheme of things, but a lifetime to a restive youth. Breach of his servitude would trigger severe punishment if he were caught, but Peach never dwelled on consequences. After the panic-inducing lunar eclipse, he set out as if pulled away by unknowable forces or the nearby tides, leaving behind debts on top of his indenture contract. Indentured servants had no right to leave the colony without expressly granted permission, and before fleeing Plymouth, Peach compounded his transgression by convincing 3 fellow servants to join him on his mad dash. Now, just a few days into their journey, the very presence of the companions by the campfire complicated matters for him. Reasons for impatience multiplied. So far, Peach had failed to provide much sustenance or even to navigate the woods properly. By the time they had camped in Misquamsqueese, he needed a way to prove himself a leader. A distant sound demanded attention. It was impossible to differentiate between predator and prey, at least until it, man or beast, moved closer. With daylight on them, Peach could have hunted for food, but for the moment he conserved his waning energy.